All right, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news out of Minnesota. Minnesota just became the 23rd state to legalize cannabis. Come on, everybody. Congratulations, Minnesota. That is awesome. Congratulations. One step further to freedom. Minnesota governor just signed the bill to make them the 23rd state. After months of committee hearings and floor votes, Governor Tim Walz signed off on HF 100 as he committed to doing. So, hey, congrats for keeping your word. Let's take a look at what the bill does and the parameters around it. After the governor signed it, marijuana possession and home cultivation, that's huge right there. That's very huge. Will become legal in the state on August 1st. That's this year, August 1st this year, with regulators expected to take 12 to 18 months to get a licensed commercial sales system launched. That seems to be par for the course, the trend. Virginia still is working on their dispensary rollout, how they're going to do it. California, after they went from medical to recreational, took about a year. Other states have followed the same. So that's normal, 12 to 18 month bureaucratic nightmare. Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura, huge champion of cannabis, delivered impassioned testimony and congratulated everybody and said excited to be joining Governor Tim Walz today to finally legalize recreational cannabis in Minnesota. Thanks for calling it cannabis, Jesse. We appreciate you. Thank you to the governor and his staff for allowing me to witness firsthand this historic moment in Minnesota history. It is historic. That's 23 states now. 23 states. It's awesome. Getting closer. Let's look at some of the parameters that's going to come after that 12 to 18 month, bureaucratic process. As of August 1st, adults 21 and older will be able to possess in public up to 2 ounces of cannabis, and they'll be allowed to cultivate up to 8 plants at home, 4 of which can be mature. That's interesting. That means you can't have 8 full plants. You have to constantly be rotating them. Whatever. People can possess up to 2 pounds of marijuana in their residences. Holy moly. That's a lot. So they can't just kick in your door anymore and just say, oh, you've got weed here. They can't do that. That's awesome. Home grow and mass possession is what is very imperative for these bills going forward with cannabis legalization. That's my opinion. Gifting up to 2 ounces of marijuana without remuneration between adults will be permitted. And that right there is interesting because in California, you're not allowed to gift anybody any cannabis of any amount. You have to charge them. And now in California, when you do a buy one, get one free of a pre-roll or an eighth or anything you buy, it's actually buy one, get one for a penny because you can't give anybody anything. And that really actually hurts some of the nonprofits and the veterans organizations that give out and gift cannabis to veterans with PTSD or opioid problems, and they're trying to wean off. Now it's so ridiculous. You have to charge a penny. That's fine. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? It's expected to take 12 to 18 months, like we said, for licenses to be issued and regulated sales to start. They'll start as of March 1st, 2025, which will be after the next presidential election. Maybe calming everybody down a little bit. It's probably good. Existing medical cannabis businesses can receive new combination licenses that would allow them to participate in the adult use market. So in California, they have pre-ICO, Prop D compliant. So that means you're grandfathered in and your legacy. So if you have a medical cannabis license dispensary, I believe you are in a higher tier than what people would be just coming into the market just strictly for recreational purposes. Gives you that medical edge. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension will be responsible for identifying people who are eligible for relief to the courts for certain marijuana misdemeanor records will be automatically expunged. That is awesome. Yay, Minnesota. Congrats. A newly created cannabis expungement board will also consider felony cannabis offenses for relief, including potential sentence reductions for those still incarcerated. That's going to need some follow-up because I don't think anybody would be in jail for misdemeanors. And if you're a felon for doing what they just said is legal now, I believe you should have that fully wiped. If it's a non-violent offense. In addition to creating a system of licensed cannabis businesses, municipalities and counties can own and operate dispensaries. That's interesting, meaning a city you live in can then own and operate the dispensary. Tax revenue and all that. That's interesting. On-site consumption permits can be approved for events, and cannabis delivery services will be permitted under the bill. That's great. So you can have a festival or a business expo for the cannabis world and actually be able to sample and pass out samples, something you probably couldn't do before. Local governments will not be allowed to prohibit marijuana businesses from operating in their areas, though they can set reasonable regulations on the time of operation and location, also limiting the number of cannabis business licenses based on population size. That makes sense as far as the licenses and population, right? For a town of 500 people, you don't want 500 dispensaries. Logical. That's great. This is interesting right here because in California and some other states, cities and municipalities can opt out. For example, Inglewood, I believe, has opted out. We mentioned this before on our Alex Chomp podcast, but they opted out because as of now it is a cash business, so they don't want to promote any more crime based on cash. And dispensaries in California, legal dispensaries in California, have to close by 10 p.m. So if you go to a dispensary in California and it's after 10 p.m., you ain't in a legal one. Just saying. There will be a gross receipts tax on cannabis sales in the amount of 10%, which will be applied in addition to the state standard 6.875%. So you're going to be paying about 17% sales tax on cannabis, which that's lower than some other places. Other places are around 30, 40, or 50%, which is crazy. 80% of revenue will go into the state's general fund, with some monies earmarked for grants to help cannabis businesses fund substance misuse treatment efforts and other programs, and 20% will go to local governments. Okay. I like earmarking things because in California, Prop 64, when it was legalized, gave the governor, and at the time, and still is, of this recording, Governor Gavin Newsom, sole control over 100% of tax revenue garnered from cannabis sales to use at his own discretion. He can use that on anything he wants. It doesn't have to be cannabis related. And that's fine. You want to use, fix roads and bridges and stuff. Think he is. You'd have to look for Colorado to do that. Colorado's killing it in those regards. But I like the idea that you have to keep some of it basically in the industry, minimum in the industry. A new Office of Cannabis Management will be established, and it will be responsible for regulating the market and issuing cannabis business licenses. And there will be a designated division of social equity. Great. That's good news. The legislation will promote social equity in part by ensuring diverse licensing by scoring equity applicants higher. People living in low-income neighborhoods and military veterans who lost honorable status due to a cannabis-related offense will be considered social equity applicants eligible for priority licensing. People convicted of cannabis offenses or who have an immediate family member with such a conviction will also qualify. That's great. So they're extending their arms to people in the world of cannabis, veterans, people that have been harmed in this way. They're giving them a chance to apply. Now, it's going to be interesting. They haven't said anything, which they'll work out in the next 12 to 18 months. But they haven't said anything about licensing fees, how many times you have to apply, do you have to have cash, a few $100,000 on hand. And this is a lot of stipulations that other states have when it comes to applying for cannabis businesses, most specifically dispensaries. You have to have, for example, $250,000 cash on hand to prove you can operate for at least a year or two. In the red, you have enough cash to operate. You also have to basically apply with a very, very expensive non-refundable fee. I don't really think that's fair. That should be maybe waived, or some of that linked to the second part. The military angle is great. I hope that the feds adopt that as well if eventually cannabis is decriminalized in the United States, that not only current offenders but past military veterans will have their discharge status updated. I don't know the numbers, how many people were dishonorably or medically discharged for cannabis use or something like that, but it's at least one, I would imagine. So it's going to help someone, and that's what. Okay. Yeah. Water. That's what cannabis is here to do. It's supposed to help. It's supposed to help PTSD and military veterans and social equity people in the small business world. Now, I would love more details on this, but this is a great start. And congratulations, Minnesota. That's awesome. This is really a step or two steps in the right direction. Let's just take a look at this. Oh, that's 28 minutes. Let's not take a look at that. Sorry. But yeah, shout out Jesse Ventura. Shout out to the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. Don't know much about you, except I commend you on signing this bill, and all the other activists and cannabis industry people that have helped push for this. I commend you. Congratulations. And until next time, keep growing, and don't forget to tip your bud tenders.